CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Good evening. Hudson Mack is away tonight. I'm Andrew Johnson. The BC Centre for Disease Control confirms the first case of E-COLI found in British Columbia, linked to the beef recall at Alberta's XL Foods, is from Vancouver Island. The agency is offering very few details on the case, not saying if it is a boy or a man, but health officials will say the person is from Nanaimo. The Vancouver Island patient brings the total number of E-COLI cases linked to the tainted Alberta beef to 11. But the BC Centre for Disease Control and the Vancouver Island Health Authority are not saying where the patient purchased the infected meat, how long he was sick, or where he was treated. CTV's Stephen Andrew joins us now with more. Stephen?
Andrew, the patient in Nanaimo fell ill in the middle of September, was treated and has now recovered. But the BC Centre for Disease Control and the Vancouver Island Health Authority are downplaying where the patient lives. Those agencies say the recall is so widespread that every community is affected. Now, the largest recall, beef recall in Canadian history has become so widespread that people living in Hong Kong are now being warned about the tainted Alberta meat. Hong Kong's Centre for Food Safety notes that some raw beef from Alberta's XL Foods has been distributed to local shops, and it has ordered distributors to recall the product. And now the U.S. also estimates that more than 1 million kilograms has entered that country. As for BC's first confirmed E. coli case linked to the recall, health officials will only confirm that the beef was purchased in Nanaimo.
The person who was infected on Vancouver Island ate beef multiple times during their potential, what we call incubation period, or that could have led to the illness. So it's unclear which one caused the illness, and I don't have more information than that.
Now, the Vancouver Island Health Authority isn't offering much more than that. VHA tells CTV News now that the E. coli case has been linked to the XL Foods plant. The medical health officer will be conducting a follow-up investigation with the patient to try and pinpoint the source of the exposure and obtain other details. But the BC Centre for Disease Control says since the contaminated beef was distributed to restaurants and stores, it's difficult to tell if the beef you have consumed or the beef that's in your freezer came from the contaminated plant.
It's difficult to tell for the general consumer to tell whether their meat came from XL Foods. So if they're not sure, if it doesn't actually say XL Foods on it, which is likely, then they should be asking their retailer or their store where they purchased it. And if they can't find that information out, it's better to discard it to be safe.
Now, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency will be conducting a detailed assessment tomorrow of the Alberta processing plant at the heart of the tainted beef recall. XL Foods wants its license reinstated after it was revoked due to deficiencies in its operations. The assessment necessarily won't green-light the plant to reopen this week, but health officials monitoring the BC case are stressing the issue where the beef was found is really not as important as how consumers handle the product. So here is how you can prevent getting any foodborne illness or help to prevent that. The BC Centre for Disease Control says cook your raw beef thoroughly to a finishing temperature of at least 71 degrees Celsius. Practice good hygiene. Wash your hands before and after cooking. Keep knives, counters and cutting boards clean. Keep raw meats separate from other foods when storing them, and make sure that you refrigerate or freeze any leftovers promptly. And finally, Andrew, check your freezer. 1/3 of Canada's beef supply comes from XL Foods. So if you think you've got product that may be contaminated, check with the store where you purchase the beef. So you can also visit our website at ctvvancouverisland.ca, where you will find a link to all that recalled product. And if you're not sure whether the beef you have is contaminated, be safe, not sorry. As the Centre says, throw it out immediately.
Good plan. Thanks, Stephen.
You're welcome.
And there are more warnings from the Coastal Fire Centre tonight after 12 wildfires were sparked on the island over the weekend. With no rain for months and very little in the forecast, the Coastal Fire Centre says it is bone dry in the woods, and people who are venturing out into the backcountry need to be careful. The Fire Centre says of the dozen fires, 11 were caused by people. Luckily, the fires were small and easily contained.
As strange as it is, the short days actually help us a little bit because the night times are cooler. We're really hoping for rain. Our forecasters are saying there's some kind of a breakdown in the weather pattern toward the end of next week, but we're going to need some several days in a row of pretty soaking rain to turn this around.
The Coastal Fire Centre says it hasn't seen extreme dry conditions lasting into October for more than 30 years. The fire risk on Vancouver Island remains at high from Campbell River south, with pockets of extreme conditions around Nanaimo. The Fire Centre says if you are going into the backcountry, make sure your campfire is out and do not throw your cigarette butts into the dry grass. The big question a lot of people in the capital region are asking tonight is not how long the sunny weather is going to last, but if their BC Transit bus will be running over the next few days. CAW Local 333's 1 p.m. deadline came and went today with no job action from transit drivers, but that doesn't mean the threat of an all-out transit strike has gone away. The union and BC Transit are still at a standoff over wages, benefits, and contracting out. If the impasse cannot be settled, the union is in a legal position to shut down transit as early as Wednesday, region-wide.
We're hoping it doesn't come to that. We've got an offer on the table that's in line with what has been signed, deals that have been inked in other public sector unions. It's fair, it's reasonable. They could certainly bring transit to a halt in this community, and we really don't want that to happen.
BC Transit says its hands are tied, that it has to negotiate within the province's cooperative gains mandate, which only allows for wage increases when savings are found within the system. The union says its offer falls within that mandate and that BC Transit is forcing the union's hand to put the brakes on the region's buses.
Any form of job action is a last resort, but unfortunately, if BC Transit does push us to that point, that is a action that we will need to move forward with. You know, BC Transit has taken a stance on a few issues that we're just not able to live with, and you know, hasn't been significant improvements made to language and contracting out and benefits within our contract in a number of years, and there's some issues out there that our members need us to resolve, and we need to get that language put into the collective agreement and resolved at the table.
Negotiations broke off last Friday. No new talks are scheduled. The union says it will give 24 hours notice before taking any job action, so there will be buses on the road tomorrow. You should have a plan B come Wednesday, however. BC Transit says riders can go to its website for updated information. You can also listen to our radio partner CFAX 1070 and watch CTV News at 5 for details on any potential strike action. Well, it was a busy day, but not too bad at the ferry terminals up and down Vancouver Island, where one and sometimes two sailing waits seem to be the norm. Here is the current conditions out at the Swartz Bay Ferry Terminal. If you're heading to the mainland, you're looking at a one sailing wait right now. If you have family over on the mainland heading back to the island from Tsawwassen, they are looking at a two sailing wait in Nanaimo. Drivers waiting for a boat at Departure Bay, we're looking at a one sailing wait to get off the island. And at Duke Point, people trying to get to Tsawwassen, we're looking at no sailing wait. To check the current sailing conditions, go to bcferries.com. Close to 700 people are sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner right now, thanks to a well-known Victoria businessman and a small army of volunteers. For 14 years, Gordy Dodd has fed the less fortunate, people who need help in the community he says has given him so much. The dinner takes days of prep, but Dodd's team has turkey and all the fixins down to a science.
We are doing 35 turkeys and 400 pounds of potatoes, 200 pounds of onions, 200 pounds of celery, 30 loaves of bread, veggies, Brussels sprouts, a lot of gravy. We love to volunteer, we love to donate, we love to give to the community.
Why did you want to volunteer with this stuff?
Well, our friends invited us. They have done this before, and we thought, well, sounds like a really good thing to be doing. So we have a lot to be thankful for, and certainly we've been blessed living here in Victoria and in Canada, and we thought, well, we'll help out with some people that don't have as much as we have. We had Thanksgiving last night with dear friends, about 20 of us, and so it's nothing to give up this afternoon and evening to be here.
We will start serving at 5 o'clock to everybody, and there's always line up outside. I know we feed every year to 600-700 people at least, and we never turn anybody down. Giving, sharing, gives you happiness. I'm that kind of guy, like if I'm helping somebody and sharing food or sharing thoughts or giving back to the community or the needy people, that's giving me happiness. I think it gives to everybody.
After carving through your Thanksgiving dinner tonight, you might want to take the time to go over your home's fire emergency plan. Today is the start of Fire Prevention Week, and this year's theme is Have Two Ways Out. A group of grade 4 and 5 students from School District 63 were put to the test last week at the 12th Annual Fire Expo. Firefighters from Central Saanich, Sydney, North Saanich and Saanich hosted the hands-on event to give the kids the tools they need in case of emergency. The students learned how to use a fire hose and extinguisher and saw a demonstration of how to get out of a smoke-filled home.
Just want people to know about two ways out. We want to make sure that people have escape plans and that smoke alarms are really important for your homes. So we do tell the kids how to test them, how to maintain them.
So I'll tell them that I got to do a whole bunch of fun stuff today, and I learned a lot of stuff that not most people get to do.
Smoke alarms are the stuff that go in your house, and when there's smoke in your house, then it beeps.
Fire Prevention Week is aimed at educating and empowering communities to prevent fires at home and protect their families through planning and making sure everyone in your home knows the two ways out in case of fire. BC Conservative leader John Cummins is warning disaffected party members to get in line or get out. The ultimatum comes after several constituency presidents signed a letter demanding Cummins step aside as leader. Cummins defeated a leadership review at the party's annual general meeting last month. Party officials say that vote puts an end to questions about Cummins' leadership, and the party's executive is painting the people calling for his resignation as a small group of members. The party's president has given the group until Wednesday noon to get in line.
Essentially what we've said to the disaffected members, I sent an email out on Saturday night, Sunday morning, saying you have until Wednesday noon to let us know whether or not you're going to stop this stuff and come on board with the majority of the party, or if you're going to do the honorable thing and resign from the party. And if you don't, by noon on Wednesday, the party will have no option but to take a look at what to do next.
A source tells CTV News the group plans to ignore the ultimatum, complaining that Cummins' leadership is turning off new members and donations. But the party says in recent days it has secured $250,000 in donations. The disaffected members say they will be issuing a media release tomorrow morning detailing how they plan to move forward. Enbridge wants the environmental panel reviewing the Northern Gateway project to demand the project's critics reveal their sources of funding. The panel returns to BC this week for final hearings. The Calgary-based energy giant is taking issue with foreign groups, including the California-based Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. A spokesman for the Moore Foundation's Wild Salmon Ecosystem Initiative says there's nothing underhanded about its funding. The foundation's Vancouver office says Enbridge is trying to undermine the credibility of its critics. An early morning crash where Tillicum Road crosses the Trans-Canada Highway sent an elderly woman to hospital. Traffic was tied up while police and emergency responders extricated the woman. Witnesses say one of the vehicles made a left turn off Tillicum onto the highway against the red and was hit by a southbound vehicle on the TCH.
The party that's injured is an elderly female and should be taken to hospital for observation at this point. Her injuries are still undetermined.
Investigation is ongoing. No word on what, if any, charges are pending. If you were thinking about heading down to your local Applebee's restaurant for Thanksgiving dinner, make other plans. The chain has closed its doors in BC for good. The Applebee's at Tuscany Village in Saanich turned off its grill and closed its doors on Friday night. Applebee's says all 3 BC locations, including Saanich, Port Coquitlam and Courtenay, are now closed. Applebee's says the agreement with the company that franchised the chain restaurant in BC has been terminated due to financial concerns. There is no word on how many staff are affected. There are reports an Original Joe's restaurant will open in the Tuscany Village location next year. You might want to take the time to go over your home's fire emergency plan after a turkey dinner tonight. Today is the start of Fire Prevention Week, and this year's theme is Have Two Ways Out. Firefighters say it is important to both identify and have your family practice 2 escape routes out of your home. You should also designate a meeting place for when you get outside.